My guest is Femi Awofala. He's the founder and CEO of the Catalyst, or the African Catalyst. All right. Thank you for joining the program.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, Wisdom.
So, I mean, I've tried to go analyze the issue of infrastructure. We're discussing closing the energy infrastructure gap. So, where I want to start with you quickly so that we just run so fast is when we say energy infrastructure, so that we give clarity to it, what are we referring to?
Okay, thank you so much, Wisdom, for joining this program. So basically, when you talk about energy infrastructure, they are basically the enabling infrastructure that makes various forms of energy value chain work. So, for example, pipelines, right? You need pipelines to bring energy, to bring gas from the subsurface, you know, into whatever destination. You need, what's it called? You need processing facilities to process gas. You need production requirement facilities to produce oils from different fields at the same time. You need gas gathering mechanisms or gasification plants to gasify LNG. You need liquefaction plants to liquefy energy. So what has happened is the fact that a lot of people have forgotten the fact that apart from the natural resource you have in the subsurface, somebody else has to think through the process of bringing those resources into production, bringing them into the customer. Even things like your CNG buses or your trucks and things, they're all part of the energy infrastructure. And you can even look at energy infrastructure because some people look at energy from the word power, right? Some people look at energy from the word of natural resources. So even in the power sector, you have, you know, energy infrastructure such as power plants. You have renewable energy systems like wind, like solar and things like that. So God has given us the abundant natural resource, either from sunlight or renewable, but the work is still not yet done until the energy infrastructure that is required to produce that energy is available.
It's available. The grid, we understand, collapsed 2 days ago.
Correct.
And one of two issues they raised on the issue is one, infrastructure.
Correct.
There's been like a decay in infrastructure. There's been the issue of vandalism. How do you react to this?
Okay, so basically, I think things like national grid are things that require long-term planning.
Okay.
Right? And unfortunately, nobody has been able to bite the bullet, right? Even if you make a decision to revamp the grid today, it's another 5 years project, right? My own view and our view is for us to regionalize the grid. And what we're saying is to basically have a grid for the south of Nigeria. Have a smaller regional grid for southeast, for northeast and things like that. Let that grid just serve that, you know, regional area so that the eyes, the people can say, oh, this is our grid. You cannot vandalize it.
Okay.
Right? So, but because you've created a national infrastructure that has from different states to different states, nobody's taking ownership of it.
No ownership.
It becomes like a national cake. Eat your own and leave the others left. So, but somebody and government needs to take a drastic decision and make an effort to start looking at creating regional effective grids.
Okay.
You don't need to necessarily, you know, have one grid system or even create a second highway grid as they've talked about. Jonathan talked about it a while back.
Okay.
But now, what can you do on a modular, on a micro scale that can serve, you know, certain 3, 4, 5 states at the same time?
We are hoping they will achieve this with the, the different states now have the powers to generate,
Correct, the Electricity Act and things like that.
transmit and distribute power.
Correct.
So they are setting up their laws. Now, right now, we know 10 states have done that.
Correct.
And we hope more states we do.
Definitely. But a cost of warning to the issues is the fact that as much as states can enact these laws and provide the right enabling environment for private sector to develop power in their states, but there's still an aspect of a state government also providing some level of guarantees or some level of support to ensure that those projects actually thrive. Having an electricity law in your state makes you a regulator. Fine. So they have the Enugu State Electricity Board, Lagos Electricity Board. But in a commercial transaction, within a private sector individual providing power to an area within the state that does not have enough collecting systems,
Okay.
some level of guarantees or assurances needs to still come in from the state. But we shouldn't forget that part.
Okay. So we are discussing closing the energy infrastructure gap.
Great.
And some experts have said that one of that is investment.
Yes, definitely.
That there's inadequate investment in infrastructure in the energy sector.
Correct.
How do you react to that? And if we are to now begin to fund, where do we start?
Okay, very important point. So, just like a woman conceiving a baby,
Yes.
every large-scale energy project, right, goes through an incubation, a conception, growth until it is birthed.
Correct.
What a number of African governments have failed to realize is the fact that large-scale power projects or large-scale projects that are required within the energy space needs to go through a period of conceiving and nurturing.
Okay.
Now, every project that starts, even when you see a pregnant woman, he won't tell you he wants to give birth tomorrow. He'll tell you he's going to give birth in 9 months.
9 months.
Right? So there's that, antenatal care and things. So what has failed is what we call the early stage investments.
Early stage investment.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the investments that come at the very early stage, at the seed stage. You find a lot of them in the tech space because in technology, it's easy for you to say, oh, Wisdom, I'm doing this app. I have 200 people. Come and see the app. It's working, right? Can you put $50,000? You probably will put it.
So it doesn't work that way in the energy sector.
Because you're only submitting a dream. When you want to build a refinery, what are you showing me the refinery? No.
Nobody believed Dangote refinery would work when it started.
What you're showing me is a piece of paper,
Yes.
some agreements you have with some people, and some committed shareholders you have. So when you think energy infrastructure, you have to think about convincing people to give you $200 million on top of what you have to say. Yes, you can show them the land.
Yes.
You can show them where you want to put it.
Yes.
But you have not put it yet. So the early stage investments is a critical process that requires a different level of thinking.
Okay.
It requires you to have what? A committed a committed shareholder team.
Okay.
Because most lenders would not fund you, or banks would not fund you early stage funding to do your feasibility study, your design, your front-end engineering design, your EIA, or your sustainable whatever. You have to find a way to fund it by yourself.
By yourself.
And sometimes government does not want to support you. We have what we call project preparation facilities. They are also not there as much as they should be. So you are left with family, friends, and maybe relatives that you have who believe in what
So what is the solution now to change this? Early stage funding, like you said, is what we need.
Correct.
So how do we achieve that?
So there are there are two ends. There's the demand side and there's the supply side.
Okay.
The demand are people who are ready to fund the projects.
Okay.
Right? And the supply are people who are supplying the project. So on the supply side, there's a lack of capacity building.
On the supply side?
On the supply side, yeah. So on the side of the developers.
Okay.
People developing the project sponsors.
And this cuts across
It cuts
the
across.
energy sector.
Because you wake up one day, you have an idea to develop a gas pipeline, and you come and meet me, Femi, Wisdom, please, I need $20 million to develop my gas pipeline.
Yeah.
I don't get it. You need to show traction. Traction means the ability to say, oh, I have this project. I've already done some little work, right? I've secured my sites. I've done a few things that has to do with getting the project ready. I can show you an offtake agreement. I can show you what I've done to move the project forward. Now, the level of discussion in the energy infrastructure space has more to do with convincing people that you are de-risking the project.
Oh, okay.
If you cannot convince them you are de-risking the project, the first thing they see is that if they see that your own ability or knowledge about that project is lacking, they are not ready to waste their time on it.
Okay, but many other people say, this is before we wrap up now, that investors want to come, but there's issue of ease of doing business. There's issue of incentives for investors.
Correct.
Quickly, I mean, in 1 minute, what's the solution to this?
So the biggest problem, and I want to talk within the energy infrastructure space, one is land acquisition. Land acquisition. You see, ease of doing business in terms of forming your company and things, I think largely in Nigeria and in Africa, it has been solved. Okay. Question of opening a bank account, getting your inflows in has been solved. But yes. When you want to do any energy infrastructure project, it's not in the sky, it's not on the sea, it's on the land. So you have local interaction with locals within the community for you to achieve that. Second part of it is we are dealing with a level of foreign exchange issues and risk, because almost 60 to 70% of major energy infrastructure components are imported in and itself. So it's high time we start creating a local content for that.
Okay.
We have Ajaokuta steel. Why can't we create all the pipelines we need in this country for oil and gas? Why are we still importing pipelines? We have tremendous amount of resources in even in the mining space, part of the energy. But why can't we start, processing those things to make use in itself? Now, another major issue of the cost of doing business is also what we see in terms of the market itself. Okay. So you have a market that you need to get some form of what you call an off-taker.
Off-taker?
Yeah, to really de-risk the fact that you will sell.
Okay.
But if you don't have an off-taker, then you just sell to the public. So that ability to de-risk the project from a demand perspective is a big issue. The ability to get your land and be able to ensure that the land you have is free of any encumbrance and things. Because remember, the land is what the banks are relying on. That's where your mortgage starts. That's where your security.
Yes.
And of the asset in itself. So, but we can do a lot more. And I would like to also mention that, organizations like the Nigerian Local Content Board, and I've seen them do
NCDMB.
They've done a lot of investments, in the oil and gas space, but I think they need to start having what you call a project preparation approach. Okay. To say you don't necessarily need to fund all these projects in terms of equity of 30 billion or 50 billion or whatever. You can actually help 1,000 entrepreneurs in the Niger Delta by helping to fund their early stage work, like their feasibility studies, like their design.
Because we're wrapping up now, just last question. What critical role can government play to fast track all of this?
Well, government can play a lot of roles, starting from land acquisition. Okay. Right? A lot of investments, people investing in LNG, in pipelines and things, they need the right of way, right? And sometimes state government tells you it's not their problem, federal government tells you it's not their business, go solve it.
So this is where they need to come in.
Yeah. Secondly, most large-scale energy projects now require some level of environmental, social, and impact assessment. Right? Even up to ESG, sustainability, IFC performance standards. When you look at those 9 yards, right? It's not easy for you to leave the entrepreneur and say he can do it. Okay. Government has to help to solve the issue of community engagement a lot better. Okay. Because if you look at most communities, not even Niger Delta, anywhere in Africa, right? When you have an energy resource and you're doing an energy infrastructure project, they tend to feel that, you're tapping into their resource, which is okay, but you need to have that dialogue, and sometimes government needs to step in to help to broker those kind of relationships. Interesting.
We've been discussing closing the energy infrastructure gap. There's so much to unpack.
Yes, we need to do this again.
we need to do this again. There's so much to unpack.
Yeah.
As you've you hit on critical points, and I really want to expatiate more, but because of time, I think this is the best place we have to leave it now. Okay. Then. Until we bring you back again to continue where we've stopped now. Definitely. Because when we solve this issue of infrastructure, I believe that we solved, quite a lot of the problems we're having, from the power to gas and all of that. Everything is indeed linked up. But Mr. Femi, thank you so much for coming on the program. We'll find time to bring you again.
Thank you too.